Hey everybody, Jeremy Siskind here. I'm preparing for a gig. I'm playing at the Vail Jazz Festival in Colorado in a couple of weeks. And I know that there's going to be some fast playing. And I know that that's really not my thing. So I've been thinking about some of the best advice that I've gotten in terms of how to play at fast tempos. But let me test myself a little bit and demonstrate some fast playing for you. I'm going to play a little bit over the tune Pent-Up House by Sonny Rollins. Alright, so if you're anything like me, maybe you feel really great about playing ballads or medium tempos, but those really fast tempos above maybe 200 beats per minute, 250, edging up towards 300, those scare you. They scared me. So again, I don't claim to be an expert, I can fake it, but here's the best advice that I've got that I can pass along to you. So the first thing is to think like a drummer. And what I mean by this is, this is not your time to make the most incredible complex melodies. This is your time to really engage with the rhythm. Think about making groups of 3, groups of 5, really interesting rhythms, repetitive rhythms that are going to feed into that drum-like quality, the percussive quality of the piano. One great, fast solo that I'm always thinking of is on Mantra Malsuri with the fringe on top. That's a really fast tempo that he plays. And at one point in his solo, he does so many interesting things, but he plays. And then he eventually even just goes 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. He's not playing a melody at all. He's almost playing a cymbal or a drum at the top of the piano, but in these groups of 3 that are really interesting. So playing at a fast tempo doesn't mean that you need to play all over the piano like you're Bud Powell or whoever else you might think of. Of course, if you can, God bless you. But you can play some more repetitive things. So think about something out of that's totally a drum pattern, right? So instead of thinking about what kind of vocal saxophone-like melodies I'm making, I'm thinking more like a drummer, and that goes for between your 2 hands as well. It could be. Different drums going on basically at the piano, right? Which brings me to point 2, which is that my iPad is frozen. There we go. You can let your left hand take it. This is going badly from a tech perspective. Trust me, it's about to settle down at let your left hand take it. There we go. And what I mean by that is that I think as we play at fast tempos, we tend to get really obsessed with our right hand. But our left hand can provide us with a break, and everybody needs a break at a tempo like this. more, so that it doesn't get to the point where I have to feel like I'm filling up all that space with the right hand. So the left hand, at these fast tempos, they can play 4, 5, 6. It could take a whole 8 bars with just the left hand. So it's not that the right hand has to fill up every single moment with eighth notes. The left hand can take much more of the burden. Next is to think in larger beats. I promise you that my iPad will catch up in just a second. There it is. So it's really tempting as we get to that fast tempo to think about chord notes. But I find that I can relax so much if instead I think about half notes or even whole notes. And one of the ways that is going to manifest itself is in your foot tapping. Some of you might tap your feet, some of you might not, but it's actually physically difficult at these fast tempos to tap your feet in terms of quarter notes. And so it's making your body do something that's actually just taking a ton of energy. And imagine if your foot is glitching, right? If your foot's coming in kind of in the wrong place, then is your time going to be good or is it going to affect things? It's probably going to affect things a little bit. So instead of now I'm going to go to half notes. You can hear in my sound that it's more relaxed. And there might be times when you want to have that quarter note to make it really feel like it's pushing, but that lighter tone and more relaxed from the muscles is really helpful. You can also go all the way to whole notes. Accents change as I change how I'm feeling the time. So I would practice tapping your feet in those different ways, and for me there's a body equivalent, that if I'm in quarter notes, I'm tensing up more. If I'm in half notes, there's kind of a different breathing to the body. So try different rhythmic units. And with that in mind, you can also try orienting yourself with these half notes, either to beats 1 and 3 or beats 2 and 4, and they'll give you slightly different feels. So 1 and 3. Right, versus 2 and 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 2. Feels a little bit different. So experiment, figure out what works for you. All right, number 4 is going to appear in a second, and it says avoid crossovers and unders. Find some things that you can play where you're not crossing over and under your thumb, because that's one of the main things that slows us down as pianists. So I already showed you this little phrase. So that's great because it has this drumistic feel, right? I already showed you da 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 da. But it's also great because I'm not crossing over and under at all. Another, these kind of finger patterns where you can go. All I'm doing there is I'm taking these descending 7th chords and I'm reversing the notes in every other one. But it requires no crossing over or under. So I would challenge yourself to play some solos where you don't cross over or under at all. And And of course, that's not to say that you can't cross over under at fast tempos. If you're a good pianist, you can do that quickly. But you want to find places, again, where your hand can be nice and relaxed, and you can take little breaks. So the more licks, the more information, the more vocabulary that you have that doesn't involve that kind of crossing over and under, the better off you'll be. And then this last one is maybe a little bit niche, but it's to check hand simultaneity. And what I mean by that is check whether your left hand and right hand are playing exactly together. And I bring this up because it was a problem for me. I should say, it is a problem for me. And when one of your hands is in front of the other, one of the things that can do is it can make it sound like you're rushing or dragging, even if you're playing basically in tempo, because you'll sound like you're a little bit ahead or a little bit behind of your other hand that's keeping the beat. So as I practice, I'm focusing on whether my two hands are coming exactly together, or whether maybe my left hand's pushing a little bit, or my right hand's pushing a little bit. You can even practice doing it wrong. What if you try to put your left hand ahead a little bit? Really destabilizes the tempo. It makes it feel like it's got a ton of forward momentum, a ton of really restless energy. And if you're not sure, if you say, "Ooh, how is my hand simultaneity?" A great thing to do if you have access to this is record yourself to software that has a piano roll. If you have Logic or Ableton, for example, you can record yourself into MIDI, look at the piano roll, and then put the tempo down as much as you can. And here, does my left hand usually come first? Does my right hand usually come first? How is that working? I'm going to try to put my left hand now behind my right hand. Tempo just doesn't sound crisp now, right? So hand simultaneity is really important to making the tempo feel really good. And lastly, I didn't write this one, but I think it just really bears saying that you have to check everything physically. I'm gonna write it in right now. It's number 6, and by that, we already talked about feet and whether or not you're tapping your foot. Other things to check your breath, right? I think a lot of us have the tendency to stop breathing at a faster tempo. So can you maintain your breath? How's your jaw? A lot of students, including myself, tend to put tension into their jaw if it's not in their shoulders. The very first lesson I had with Fred Hirsch, he suggested that I start chewing gum to help myself relax my jaw. I don't know if that's good piano teacher practice, but my jaw is generally better these days. So check your jaw, relax your jaw. And then, are you holding anywhere? In your arms, in your hands? It's very natural to get tense. You could hear that as I get tense, my tone gets really bad. As I relax, as I let that all go, then my tone all of a sudden sounds better. I can play in these longer phrases. Remember, as you're playing faster, you're going to have to group more notes together. And what that means is that instead of putting energy behind every single note, you're going to have to think in terms of dropping your arm and having it just go. Now, the balance of that is if you don't have accents, then your playing isn't going to sound very rhythmic. So that's the real value of thinking drumistically, is putting those accents in. All right, so those are your 6 things. You're going to think like a drummer. Here, I'm going to put the iPad view up so you can see everything. You're going to think like a drummer. You're going to let your left hand take it every now and then. Think in larger beats. Avoid crossovers and cross-unders. You're gonna check out your hand simultaneity to make the rhythm feel tight. And then you're gonna check your physicality to make sure that you're relaxed, you're putting yourself in good position to make some larger groupings and not have a bad tone or crash under the pressure. I hope that helps. Check out my book. It's called Playing Solo Jazz Piano. And I'll see you here. Like and subscribe, comment. It all helps. I'll see you here soon.